Can the heart ever really foresee betrayal? I couldn't. Clutching at the fragments of my shattered trust, I vowed no. I needed hardcore proof, and I wanted to know whom she was screwing so that I could hurt him in return. That night, I stood outside our bedroom crying and shaking. A broken man robbed of his illusions. Each secret uncovered, each lie exposed, led me deeper into a labyrinth of pain and anger. This is my journey through heartbreak and beyond. Enjoy watching it. It was a late day in the week when I first found out that my world was not as I thought. I came home from work early. Marge, my wife, was upstairs. I thought I'd go up and say hi. As I went down the hall, I could hear her on the phone. Getting closer, I caught the end of the chat. "Yes, love, today was good. I liked it." Since when does she like work? Our room's door was a bit open, so I looked in. She was taking off her clothes while on her phone. She stepped out of her skirt and put it on the bed. She had on black lace pants I had never seen before. I was about to enter, but then she said, "I got to hang up. He might come home. I need to shower first." I watched. She put the phone to charge and took off her shirt. She had on a matching black lace top. Back to me. She took off the pants, threw them away. The top went next as she moved to the shower. She stopped by a mirror. Women do that. From where I stood, I could see her in the mirror. What I saw made me shake. I felt sick. In the mirror, her left chest had a love bite. My wife had a mark, and it was not from me. She saw it too and grabbed her chest, touching the mark. No," she said. "Now I have to hide this." She went to shower while I cried outside our room. "I'm David Atkinson. Marge has been my wife for 23 years. We have 2 kids, Julia, 19, and Tom, 18. Marge, my wife, works part-time at the local Air National Guard base. I'm a chemical engineer. Up until a few minutes ago, I thought we had a great life together, but now it seemed like my wife needed someone else to make her happy." After calming down a bit, I went into our bedroom and tried to check her phone for the last call she got, but to my surprise, her phone had a password. We never used passwords before and would often use each other's phones. I realized it had been a couple of months since I last used her phone. It just never happened. I picked up her shirt and smelled it. There was a strange scent of aftershave on it that I didn't know. Going to the laundry basket, I picked out her undies and bra. The undies were as you'd expect, without any evidence of cheating. I thought for a bit. I got the digital video camera from the kitchen and a Ziploc bag. Going back to the bedroom, I put the undies in the bag and stuffed it in my pocket. I made a note to buy a kit to check for signs of someone else and send it to my work. The video camera went on my dresser, aimed at the mirror. I turned it on to record and hid it with one of my ties. It was pretty well hidden as I went back downstairs. I saw her laptop was on, so I tried to check her emails. No luck there, too. She had a password on it. We never had passwords on our computers either, which was another clue. Then I left. I really wanted to talk to her about it, but I was too upset. Plus, I had no real proof. She could just say it wasn't true. No, I needed solid proof, and I wanted to find out who the other guy was so I could make him pay. I called my wife's phone, knowing she was still in the shower, and told her I was held up at work and would eat later after hiding her undies in the garage. I went to the nearest bar to think and feel bad. It was a quiet old bar next to a worn-out motel. It had okay food, cheap drinks, and was a place to be alone. When I walked in, I saw a new girl working the bar. Nice, I thought. I hope she can mix a gin and tonic. And she could. Her name was Mary. It was her first day, and I liked chatting with her. She was a mom, had been married once, and was trying to get by. I got home around 11 p.m. The house was quiet. Everyone was asleep. I went to our room to change. As I was putting on my robe, Marge woke up and said, "You're late tonight." "I'm sorry to wake you," I said. "Had a long day." Then I told her, "I'll make it up to you if you've missed me." She yawned and said, "I'm just too tired now. Maybe in a day or two?" "It's a date," I said. "I'm going to wind down for a bit, then join you. Good night." She said night, and I grabbed the recorder. I went down to my computer and plugged in the camera. I noticed that we went from being close a lot to just once a week, and in the last month only on Saturdays. I skipped the video to when the bathroom door opened. She checked herself in the mirror closely. I saw a mark. She picked out pajamas for later. Odd, since she usually sleeps without clothes. I saved the video and cleaned the camera. After hiding it, I went to bed. On my way, I turned the heat up. Let's see if she likes her pajamas now. Marge was either asleep or pretending when I got into bed. On Thursday, I got up early to leave. I was too mad and needed time to cool off and think. I called work to say I'd be in late. Then I rang George. He'd know what to do. We've been pals for a long time. A few years back, George found out his wife was not true to him and they split. We hung out a lot then, talking it through. Now, George has moved up in the Air Nation Guard and looks after base safety. After his split, he dived into work and got up the ladder fast. His last job made him the head of keeping the place safe. When I called, he picked up quick. "Hey, how are you doing?" he asked. "Not great," I said back. "I think Marge is seeing someone else." "Oh, man. David, that's rough," he said. "I'll help however I can. Want to come by now?" "Yeah," I said. He added softly, "I hope you're wrong, but you're usually right. Let's find out." I went over and we sat down to talk. After an hour, we had a plan. George gave me 5 small sound recorders like the ones he used before. I went home. Marge's car wasn't there. I put 4 recorders in the house and kept one for her car. The place felt colder than before. The heat was turned down. Maybe Marge felt hot last night. I looked around her closet. There were new clothes I hadn't seen, bold ones. Maybe she bought them, but then felt shy about wearing them out. At the back of a drawer, I found lingerie that was new to me. Some were torn, like they were ripped off. That made me feel really bad. I stared at them for a long time. Then I went to work, leaving at 3. I rang Marge's cell and left a message saying I was held up at work and wouldn't make it home till late. When I finally got home that night, I sneaked the last voice bug into Marge's car and then hit the hay. I made sure to hit the sack after Marge on Friday night, too. She was either out cold or playing possum. I checked the voice bugs that evening, but got nothing juicy. Early Saturday, as usual, I fed the kids their breakfast so Marge could sleep in. Sunday would be my turn to snooze late. After the kids scampered off to watch TV, I cleaned the kitchen and zapped Marge's breakfast in the microwave. Next, I hooked up the Allen cable to my laptop, logged in, and cut off the Wi-Fi. I left Marge a note by the microwave saying I was outside and then got to work in the yard. About 2 hours later, Marge came out fussing about her laptop not picking up the Wi-Fi. We went inside. I tried my laptop, acting like it was fine, and said we should check hers. She seemed edgy and stuck close by her laptop and me. I faked some tech moves until she got bored and drifted off. Every time she left, I snuck a memory stick into her laptop and set up a spy program. The moment she left again, I programmed it to log every key hit, snap a picture of the screen every 30 seconds, track all websites she hit, and grab her emails, even the ones thrown out or sent. Once she wandered off again, I fixed the Wi-Fi from my laptop. Checked her laptop was online again and went to show her. I told her the hard drive was a mess. I showed her the cleanup tool and said to hit this button when she was done for the day to let it run all night. That way my spy tool would also send me all it caught. She wrapped her arms around my neck, gave me a kiss, and with a wink said, "Thanks, big guy. How can I pay you back?" I grinned, gave her a light tap on the backside, and said, "How about you wash my car?" She looked like she was expecting something else. I pecked her cheek and joked, "Just kidding. Back to work for me." She seemed puzzled as I left, back to cutting the grass. I knew I was being foolish. Not tonight, but I couldn't let her think I was on to her without any proof. I had to act normal for now, so I decided to work hard this day, be too tired for anything at night. We watched movies with the kids later. Marge cuddled up close and it felt nice. She got a bit playful a few times during the movies. When the second movie was almost over, I took the chance to grab a drink and sneaked one of Marge's Xanax, thinking it would knock me out in about 45 minutes. Sure enough, 15 minutes later, Marge had to wake me up. I said I was beat from working all day and headed to bed. Marge looked let down, especially when the kids wanted her to stick around for another movie. I passed out, not knowing when she joined me. Sunday is my day to sleep in, yet I was up at 5 a.m. I didn't want to be there when Marge got up, avoiding any early surprises, and it was time to check on her stuff. I turned off her alarm as I left and fired up my computer. It hit me that skipping out on SEC would make her suspicious for sure. I booted up the keylogger program and put a password on my computer. I found about 500 emails in a secret folder, so I started digging in. The keylogger showed the oldest emails first. I was looking at messages 6 months back. Among them, I found 2 from someone named Bill Perez. He had his own web name, but the chats were about her work. Maybe they worked together. Or maybe this is the guy I found an email from, sent 4 months back with the title, "Hey, hot stuff." I read it. It wasn't too bad, but it felt like this guy was trying to win her over. He got his name on the internet. A quick look showed he had no website. I sorted by date and saw 6 from Old Willie. Sent yesterday. No shock, Marge was glued to her laptop. She was scared I'd open her emails. I opened the newest one and read as my world fell apart, starting from the end where she was mad at him for leaving marks on her and how tough it was to hide them from me. He just said, "Tough luck. Get over it and forget your husband." Her mad reply came 14 minutes after. One part was telling. She said, "I know you don't love your wife, but I love my husband. I don't want to hurt him or our marriage. It's bad enough I've not been close with him much. Now with your marks, I can't even let him see me without clothes. I'm not seeing you this Wednesday." Interesting. But it changed nothing. The next 2 were him saying sorry, saying he'd be nicer, and offering a trip somewhere sunny, if she could sneak away. He said he loved her a lot, sounded young. The last one from her was glad he got her point. She would only go on trips with her husband and was skipping their Wednesday meetup. She thought it'd take a week for the marks to go away, and then she'd spend time making things right with her husband. Other emails told more. They had been together for 2 months. They met at a local hotel where his work had a room for sales guys to use. One email told her how to get there. It said the company had room 187 for 2 years now. It was the motel across from the bar I was at before. Then, a new email came from him. It was an answer to one she sent last night, and it made my head spin again. She had sent him a message saying she needed to see him this week and they could meet Wednesday at 1 p.m. She asked him to be soft this time. His reply was all sweet talk, saying how great she was and how he would make it nice for her. Right then, I knew they both had to face what they did. I needed to plan and would need George's help. I sent the emails that could help to George and started to make breakfast. March came down around 9:30 and was glad I let her sleep. I told her it was okay since I went to bed early last night. She hugged me and said, "Don't work too hard today. I need you tonight." I didn't listen to the last part and told her I just had a bit more work to do. I moved away and said I should start. As I left, I saw her look worried. She tried to hide it when she saw me looking. I told her to call if she needed anything. She weakly said okay. I was cleaning the garage when George called. First, he asked if we could talk. I went outside and said yes. He told me he had read the emails. He felt bad for me. I told him I felt awful, but now I knew. "You know, but you don't have solid proof yet," he said. "I thought I could try to get photos of her at the motel." "We can do much more if you want. You just can't use that in court," he said. "Tell me more." He had looked into bad stuff at that motel before. The owner was a good guy who didn't like bad folks or drug users there. "I'll call him tomorrow. Get a key to that room," he said. "It's for my work I'm doing now. We need to know when Perez ain't there so we can put in secret cams. It's how I caught my mean ex," he told me. "Yes, I want that," I said strong. "To catch her, and to get him too. Can you dig up stuff on him? First thing Monday, I'll start on that. Let's aim to set up the cams Monday or Tuesday. We'll need about an hour," he said. We spoke a bit more. George said the gear starts with sound and moves and sends stuff to a receiver within 100 feet. He planned to hide the receiver in a service room. To get the data, I just had to drive near the motel and turn on the receiver in my car. The first receiver also sent stuff out. On my word, it would send me its data, then clear its memory. Getting a full day's video might take 2 hours. The rest of Sunday just passed. First, I thought of just going to sleep 10 minutes after a quick time in bed. Then I decided not to. That night, when she came to bed, I acted like I was asleep already. She checked once, then turned over and slept. I woke up early Monday and left before anyone else, calling my job Monday morning. I said I wouldn't come in today and went to George's. He told me he'd talked to the motel manager, got some scoop. Turns out our guy is seeing at least 3 ladies in his hideout. He must think he's smart using a full-time room, but it's dumb to use the same spot. George also heard the manager say Perez was a bother to the staff. The final bit of news was that Perez worked in the room a few times a week, but he hardly ever came before 11 a.m. "All right, let's go," said George. We put our gear into George's van and got to the motel in 10 minutes. George knocked on the manager's door and told him I was helping him with some work and might be around at times. The manager, named Kevin, was okay with it, but said he didn't want any bad stuff going on at his place. He gave George the key to the room and showed us on a map where it was. There was a utility room not too far away, about 50 feet. George asked for the key to that room too, and Kevin made one for him right away. Then Kevin called Perez's room to check if he was there. No answer. We think Kevin drove the van close to the room. George knocked a few times, then used the key to get in. No one was there. I froze for a sec, thinking about my wife with another man in that bed. But then I started to help out. In less than 2 hours, we had set everything up and made sure it worked. As we were about to leave, I saw a spot for a laptop on the table. "George, look, he keeps his laptop here. If I can get to it when he's gone, I can put a tracker on it," I said almost too loud. "Maybe he leaves it when he goes to eat," said George. "I'll watch this place all day if I have to," I said back. "First, I want to track his car so we don't get caught off guard." "Don't rush things," he said. "Got it? We can't mess this up. Let's go now." "How about that place across the lot for lunch? Their food's good and they've got a new barmaid. She's nice and easy to chat with." "I'm in. I'm starved," said George. The bar was empty when we went in. I walked in first. Mary, the barmaid, saw me, gave a big smile and waved. Then George came up behind me. Mary looked shocked. She let the towel fall, stopped cleaning, and walked right to us, not minding me. She hugged George tight and said, "George, it's so good to see you." He hugged her back and said, "Mary, I've been thinking of you. Good to see you're doing better." She stepped back but still held him. "Not all good yet, but getting there. You helped a lot from far away." I tried to introduce George, but they both laughed. Mary let go of George, took my hand and said, "I liked you since we first met. Knowing you're George's friend means a lot." I smiled. "He can be a pain, but he's all right." She smiled back. "George and I go back a bit, but I've never thought of him as a pain. Must be a guy thing." Even as Mary served drinks to others, she kept coming back to chat with us. She shared she was working hard to save for nursing school in 5 months. By 2 in the afternoon, George and I were the only ones left. I mentioned how quiet it was, and Mary said it's always like this, and she doesn't get tips, which is tough. But she uses the time to study. Then, smiling at us both, she said, "But talking to you guys is much nicer." We talked more until Mary, suddenly serious, looked at George and said, "George, I'm going to tell him." George just looked at her calmly. She turned to me. "If we're going to be friends, I don't want secrets between us. You might not like me after I tell you. I get it, but I won't hide who I am. I don't want you hearing it from someone else." I saw her reach for George's hand. She held it tight and said, "Let me tell you how I met George. He caught me. He dragged me to a dirty cell in this cold, dark place he had at that place. I fell apart when I saw the cell. He didn't care. He just pushed me in and started to close the door. Then he stopped and watched me cry. He yelled at me, saying how I was messing up my life and how dumb I was acting. Then I saw he wasn't yelling that I was no good, which I was. He was saying I was hurting myself. No one ever told me that before, but I hurt him then, and I lost it. I fell on that awful dirty bed and cried hard. George sat by me and said just one word. She looked at me with tears and said, 'He asked me why?' Just that." Looking at George, she went on. "For the first and last time in my life, I told someone everything, crying, out of control at times. I don't know how long it took. George must have sat there for hours when I was done. He just looked at me for a very long time. Then he got up, gently touched my shoulder, and then locked me in that cell. He left me there for 14 hours. I saw no one, heard nothing. I was cold and hungry the whole time, coming down from a high. At last he came back and said it was time to see the judge. Usually you get to clean up and wear a new jail suit before you go to court. Not me. He made me go like I was. The defense didn't say a word. The judge was going to send me to jail when George stood up and asked to speak to the court. I'll never forget what he said or how he looked in his full dress. I can remember every word to this day. But what's important is that he told the judge that sending me to jail wasn't right. He wanted me in rehab. The judge and the attorney were surprised for a reason. I was deep in trouble, hooked on bad stuff and caught for things I did, which George said I did. And then, Tough George was on my team. The judge thought a bit, then gave me a chance at 90 days in rehab with 4 long years waiting if I messed up. I went for it. Looking at George, I said, I've stayed away from the bad stuff since George caught me. Looking at us, she said softly, George, David, I don't walk the streets now, but I still do what I did. It's the only way I can save for school and take care of my kid. But if you two don't want to talk to me anymore, I get it. Sorry, George. Then I felt hugs from both sides. George said, as long as you fight, I'm with you, and you will make it. I know you, I added. Mary, I'm happy we met and glad to call you a friend. It was good we were in a quiet corner of the bar. Mary just cried, holding us. Come Monday night, March showed up at 5:30 with Chinese food. She tried to kiss me, but I just took the bags and said, Great, we're all hungry. When I looked back, she seemed worried. I said, Why don't you change and I'll set things up? She turned white and I began to get plates ready. She tried to say something but stayed quiet. I was still mad about her lie last night. Dinner was quiet and the kids felt it but stayed silent. March didn't eat much, but I made sure I did. March tried to talk, but I hardly paid attention. Then I knew I was acting dumb. Being mad now was giving me away, and I didn't want her to end things before I found proof. I shook my head and said, Sorry, everyone. I had work stuff on my mind, and it followed me home. Let's try again. How was everyone's day? We talked through dinner, trying to act normal. I made sure to smile at Marge a few times and listen to her. Marge went to sleep before me. I turned the heat up a bit. After an hour, I listened to the voice tapes, but found nothing interesting. I went into our room. It felt hot, around 77 degrees. I got ready for bed, lay down, and faced away from her. She said softly, Night, honey. Without turning, I said, Why are you in that thick top? It's hot in here. She paused, then said, I'm just cold, that's all. I pushed a bit more. I turned to her and hugged her. She hugged me back, but she was all sweaty. Are you sick? I asked, worried. She said, I don't think so. I've just been cold at night. I pulled her close and said, I know ways to make you warm. She tensed and said, David, I'm sorry, I'm just too tired. I turned away and said, It's okay, Marge. She moved closer and said, I'm too tired tonight. But how about Wednesday? It'll be a light day for me. I'll make it up to you then. I just murmured, It's fine. After a bit, she went back to her side. It was awkward Tuesday morning. I left for work as usual. George told me he put a GPS on Perez's car last night and gave me the site to track it. I saw that Perez was across town. I decided it was time to check the bedroom voice recorder. I told my office I'd be back in a few hours and went home. Mark had heard from her best friend, Ashley, Monday morning. Right away, Marge told her she had an amazing time this weekend. Ashley was excited. Did you hook up with Will this weekend? So, Ashley wants to know. I wondered if her man Mike knew and kept it from me. That jerk? No. I wanted to be with David this Sunday night, but it didn't happen. I planned to be with him Saturday night like we usually do, but he was out working all day and was too beat, Marge answered. Is David better in bed than Will? Ashley fired back. Yes, being with David is always better, Marge said. Then why are you with Will? She asked, sounding amused. It's different, Marge answered. David loves me. I feel so secure with him. Well, just hits it raw. It feels good. But I never want David to just treat me that way. But both are good. I know it sounds weird, does it? It does to me, girlfriend. It's the rush, the raw heat, spreading your legs for someone special. I know. That's why I started seeing Brian Sears last year. Then she laughed. Plus, he's got that big size. Marge laughed too. And yeah, that's why you stopped with him. That big size made you walk funny. God, I was always sore after being with him. Is gentle, but it's a thick one. It's fun to play with and just look at and go, damn. Then Ashley added, Hey, next month Mike will be gone for 5 days. I think I'm going to let Brian have me on the first day. I'll be sore for the next few days, but should be okay when Mike gets back. Really? Damn, I thought you were over him. I was. Since last year, I thought Mike was suspecting something, but Brian and I keep in touch. With Mike away for 5 days, I thought I'd treat myself. You have to tell me everything, Marge said. Ashley replied with, Only if you spill on Wednesday with Will and David all the spicy details, Marge said. Deal? Then Ashley asked, How's your boob? Marge said, The mark is getting lighter, but I can't let David see it for a few more days. I've been changing in the bathroom and wearing flannels at night. He hasn't noticed? Ashley asked. Be careful. Did he say anything about no sec? No, but I need to handle that. She laughed and said, I never got to do this before, but I want to be with David on Wednesday night. I never had 2 guys in one day before, said Ashley. I've done it a few times. It's really exciting. Just make sure you get a cleanup kit before you go to see David. It cleans deep. Marge said she would, then they said bye. No way, Marge. Mean girl. And Ashley was mean too. Should I tell Mike and maybe ruin his life? That's just bad. Then I thought he might be mad for not telling him. He'd want to know, like me. I'll give him this tape after I deal with Perez. The next important call was Ashley again from this morning. Their talk sounded different from Monday. March called and said, Hi, Ashley. Ashley noticed March's mood and asked what's up. David saw that I wore thick pajamas and shut the door to change. He asked about it when we went to bed. I said I was cold, but Ashley, it was so hot. I sweated all night in those thick pajamas. I don't think he bought it, but he didn't say more. Then David wanted to be close, but I couldn't let him see the marks. I had unplugged the nightlight on Sunday, but David fixed it, so I said no again. He was upset. I tried to fix it by saying we could be close this Wednesday, but he didn't seem to care. We just lay there, so far apart. And worse, I kept thinking about being with Will, not David. I saved that file. I didn't need to listen more. I looked up how to check for other men and ordered a kit to my office. Next, I went to the motel. Perez's car was there. It was lunchtime. I went to the bar. Mary wasn't at work, but from my window I saw Perez sitting in a booth looking over a menu. It felt like the right time. So I walked over to his motel door and knocked. No one answered, so I used my key to get in. I didn't look at the bed this time, but went straight to the other room. There, his laptop was open, showing a QuickBooks page. I took out my thumb drive, plugged it in his laptop, and set up a keylogger program. I didn't snap any screenshots this time, but made sure to track all emails, all sites visited, every key pressed, and all data, including the accounting ones. If he was up to no good, I was going to catch him. Then, I turned on his remote desktop thing and checked the motel's Wi-Fi for the right port, and it was open. Next, I went to a site that lets you use a basic version of remote control software for free, and made an account with his domain name. I put the software on his laptop so I could access it from anywhere and see his desktop on my screen. The site keeps track of IP addresses, showing it was set up from the motel's network. I hid the icons from the desktop and start menu. I brought the QuickBooks page back up and left the room fast. Heading back to the office, I put in a few hours of work and got home feeling pretty good. I was all smiles and helped the kids in March. She seemed worried when I first arrived, but calmed down after seeing me act normal. Around 10, she said it was bedtime. I told her I had to finish up some work and would head to bed later. Great. See you in the morning, she said. Yeah, great, I thought. Sleep well for your lover tomorrow. I had tons of data to sort through, the recordings, files from Willie's and Marge's computers, and the phone data. But not tonight. I put the car recorder back in Marge's car after I took the data. She might have been asleep or just acting when I slipped into bed. I stayed as far away from her as I could and tried to sleep, thinking about what would happen tomorrow. Marge was up before me the next morning, which was okay by me. My stomach was in knots because I knew she was going to cheat on me again today, and I would have to watch the tape of her with another man. When I went to the kitchen, she was almost done making breakfast. She was all dressed up for work, too. She said, "You're just in time, dear, and good morning." I made a sound and went for the coffee. After I took a couple of sips, I looked at her and saw she was confused. I said sorry that I was still half asleep. She said, "Okay, you're just not yourself in the mornings. Now you know how I feel most days." I didn't say anything, just sat down and drank. The kids came in and she started to put food on plates. I usually help her when she cooks, but not today. I didn't look at her, but noticed from the corner of my eye she kept sneaking peeks at me. She stopped and looked at me hard. I didn't see it. I was looking at the door. Right before I left, she blocked my way, looking worried, and said softly, "David, is something wrong?" I looked at her blankly and said, "Not that I can tell." Then I hugged her tight, with love. She sank into my hug, relieved, and said, "I'm glad." I was worried. I said, "I love you, and can't think of life without you. And there's no one else I want to be with." I paused, then said, "I hope you feel the same about me." She got stiff and made a crying sound, holding on to me tighter, and said, "Of course I do." Then she whispered, "And I plan on making you really happy tonight." I pulled away hard and left without a second look at her. I drove to the motel and started downloading the data as I waited for Marge to head to work. I got back home just after 9 in the morning. I spent all my time in the parking lot, lost in thought about how to face the day. How was I supposed to act normal around her? What was I going to do? How could I bring myself to watch the video of her with another guy? Getting the data from the bugs took some time. I roamed the house with no direction as it transferred. I just couldn't see myself talking to Marge tonight, or even worse, sharing a bed with her. I began with his emails. After a few hours, I picked up on a few basic things. He ran 3 companies that bought stuff cheap and sold it to the local military base, some big companies, and the government. It looked like he was cheating with 5 other women besides my wife, the sneaky jerk. He had a bunch of emails about product quality and details. I saved a few emails to look into later. Not much yet, but it was a beginning. Next, I copied his 3 QuickBooks company files and used a keylogger to find out his usernames and passwords. Didn't get much from that either. I'm no expert in finances. I did notice in the expenses that he had 6 company cards. He even wrote down the card number and the notes for each. Listening to his phone chats was a long job, but it ended up being really useful. I started to connect some dots between some emails and his phone talks. One call was from someone in a busy shipping department. He mentioned a problem with the last order because it had repeating serial numbers. Even worse, all new orders had to have unique serial numbers. Perez was mad about that and made it clear he was not happy. The guy on the phone said the new checking software would catch all sorts of problems and they had to be careful. After Perez hung up, he went online and bought 2 fancy printers and stuff for them. Then a guy who sells things called him. This guy, Willie Boy, talked in circles but finally said, "Getting okayed to sell stuff takes ages, but I like you and can help. The big boss of buying at the base listens to his shopping helper. I can get that helper on your side, but you need to pay. For $5,000 in cash, you can sell $100,000 worth of goods to the base. You can even up your prices a bit. It'll be cheaper next time." The guy sounded less sad then. "Okay. How do I give you the money?" Perez asked. "I'll tell you when you're ready. In 2 days, they'll pick your bid." "Thanks. I'll call back soon." Next, he got a call from someone who works with buying things at the base, the place where Marge works. This guy told Perez what prices other sellers had offered for some deals. Besides that, he got 4 more calls that mattered. One was from my wife. That call was the same one I heard from the car bug. Taking a break, I thought it was time to sort things out. So I made folders on my flash drive for videos, sounds, info, and other stuff. I put everything into these folders and made a copy. Then it was time to call George. He felt bad for me for a bit. Then I said I needed his help in his job role. He was all ears. After I told him everything, he said, "Great, I can't use what you found in court, but it helps with what I was already checking. We've been eyeing the shipping and getting area for some time. Stuff goes missing, sometimes whole loads. And the records don't show anything wrong. I needed to check the storage because some items had the same ID and were not good enough. I told him we had to look at this now. I mentioned I had to leave the house before she came back. We can meet later at your place," he suggested. "No, let's meet at my flat at 3 p.m., I said. "I didn't want others to know yet. I'll cook and we can drink." "You're not driving." "You'll drink," George said in a strong tone. I agreed, and we ended the call. That was my plan then. I'd spend the evening with George, getting drunk. By the time I got home, Marge would be asleep. And the next day I could say a bad hangover kept me from her. My heart sank. It was nearly 1 p.m. She was meeting him soon. I tried calling Marge but only got her voicemail. Maybe she didn't want to talk. I left her a message that I was with George and coming home late. I then went back to look at video files from Monday to now. What I saw first shocked me. Early Monday, a woman came in with her own key. The man hugged her tight and they kissed a lot. Then they went to the bed. I saved that video. On Tuesday, he was with a cleaner for a short time. Later that day, another cleaner came by. He gave her money. She did things in return. I saved those videos too. It was time to see George. I made extra copies for him. George picked me up and we spent about 2 hours looking at what I found. Then we went to a bar. It was about 1 a.m. when we left, but I don't remember much after that. On Thursday, I woke up at about 9. The house was empty. No Marge or kids. There was a note on the table. After a night of too much drink, I forgot to set my alarm. "I won't wake you," she said with a snark, clearly mad. Good, I thought. Easier to keep my distance. I called my work, said I was sick, and went off to grab a scary video from a motel. On my way back, George rang. He said our case was moving fast now. The guy ready to spill about the $5,000 bribe was going to secretly record chats. The sneaky moves Perez and his crew were pulling got spotted, and a report was sent up to the higher-ups. Soon, the military police might swoop into Perez's places, checking his office, motel, and home. They'd dig into his computers, so I had to make sure my tracks were clear. George thought the raid might kick off in 10 days and hoped I'd wait to talk to March till then. Then he dropped a big surprise. March was now a suspect. My first thought was, no way. March wouldn't steal. But then, didn't I also think March wouldn't cheat? We agreed to catch up the next day. I got home and pulled up the motel and house data. Started watching Wednesday's footage till about 12:30, then stopped. I skimmed his emails next, spotting 2 other sellers likely bribing Perez. I sent those to George. Some emails were from women, setting up times to meet. I made a note. Perez would be too busy to see me snooping. But then I had to face it. I couldn't delay watching the video with March any longer. I fast-forwarded till he opened the door, and there she was, my wife, stepping in. I paused the video, sitting there, feeling empty, sick, broken, unhappy, and angry. I felt lots of things, some I couldn't even name. So I hit play and saw them hug and kiss deep, except she asked him to not be so rough. They didn't talk much as they took off each other's clothes and moved to the bed, touching while I cried. I saw him touch her. And what hit me hard was seeing her enjoy it, doing things she used to do with me. I skipped forward until I saw her get on the bed. She was ready for another man. That Thursday night was quiet. The kids weren't home. Marge and I did our things, barely talking. After everyone slept, I changed the data card in her car and took a look. I had to see the card data, guessing she talked to Ashley on her way to work. Marge wouldn't call on the house phone because I was sleeping off a hangover, and not in the kitchen because kids might hear. And yes, Ashley had called, asking how it went. Marge said it was okay with Will. I made him less rough, so I'm not hurting today. Just feel a bit used. He's still too harsh. Makes me do stuff I don't want. But it was okay, she said. Quiet? Ashley asked. But what about David? He either finished too quickly or couldn't start, right? Marge sighed deeply. No, he didn't come. Went out, drank with a friend, came home too late, drunk, and just crashed. Didn't say a word to me. What did you do? What could I? I was so mad while he just snored away. In the morning, I turned off his alarm, left a sharp note, and left. Ashley said, You know, sometimes it's just bad timing. But Marge cried out again. No, I hinted at wanting him last night. In the morning, I even said I planned to tire him out that night. He left for work, not saying a word, not even a goodbye. Ashley wondered if he was on to something or just being weird, but Marge was sure he had no clue. She was only with Will when David was away. She thought David was just mad because they weren't being close as much, and now he was giving her the silent treatment as payback. That seems a bit far-fetched, Ashley said. But Marge felt sure about it. She thought last night was her chance with David after so long, but he shut her down. And she really wanted both of them despite the pain. She was set on giving David a cold shoulder for a while. Ashley half laughed. Marge, it's your own wish to have them both, not his fault. Let it drop for now. She pointed out that David probably felt left out not being close, and Marge needed to fix that before dreaming about having both men. Marge said that's what she was aiming for, more time with David. But you made it about what you wanted, not what he needed, Ashley pointed out. You're right. Now what? Marge responded. Just drop it, advised Ashley. Maybe he didn't mean to ignore you on purpose. Just think he didn't and let it slide. David might come around tonight. Marge hoped she had somehow made Ashley mad enough to leave her alone, but then Ashley called again. "Why do you let Will make you do things you don't want?" Ashley asked. Marge said Will was just very pushy. She managed to make him a bit gentler, but he's still rough around the edges. "Like, what does he make you do?" Ashley pressed. "Just one thing," Marge replied, a bit unsure. "Yesterday he made me kneel on the floor, my head back against the bed. Then he pushed his stuff into my mouth and moved fast. But he did it so hard, it felt like I was hitting my own lips every time he moved. Being against the bed, I couldn't escape it." "That's rough," Ashley said. "He also enjoys dirty talk and wants me to say, well, very dirty things. It seems silly to me, but he likes it." "Men," Ashley said. "Yeah," Margie agreed. "I think he thinks those adult movies are real." He wouldn't stop until I said in a super sexy voice, "I love your bits." After I said it, it got better. Weird. On Thursday, Marge tried to start something, but I didn't go for it. It was nearly 2 a.m. when I finally went to bed and she was asleep. "Sorry, Ashley, you were wrong." I got up early Friday and went straight to work. I left around 3, took the test kit with me, and went to the motel to get Thursday's and today's videos. Mary wasn't at the bar, but I grabbed a drink while waiting for the data. When I got home, I started transferring the files and then used the test kit on Marge's underwear. It tested positive, but that didn't change things. I had enough time to watch the new videos and was shocked again. In the first video, a young woman in a military uniform came into his room. She looked young, maybe 20 or 21, and quite small. They had some wine. After a bit, he made his move. He was touching her everywhere. They kissed and hugged. He took off her shirt and bra and started touching her breasts. At first, she was okay with it, but as he tried to take off her skirt, she pulled back saying, "No, I'm sorry, this is wrong, I didn't mean for this to happen." I decided to leave. I tried to stand, but he pushed me back on the couch and yelled, "Too late now, you're in for it." I rolled off and tried for the door. Perez caught me, turned me to face him, and hit me hard in my belly. I fell, hurting. He started to take off his clothes. I couldn't watch. I shut the file and ran to throw up. When I felt a bit better, I made a copy for George to see. Then I opened another file. This time Mary came in. He gave her cash, and they hooked up. She had said she was a hooker, but it was still odd to see. 2 more files caught my eye, both new from today. In one, he called Marge, asking her to come over. She laughed, but said yes. In the last one, Marge came, they kissed, and she did stuff. Then she left like it was nothing. I saved these for George, too. I called George and said we needed to meet fast. He suggested coming to my place, but it was risky. So, we met at his job place. I got there quick, gave him the drive, and told him, "The first one's the worst. Sorry you have to see it. I'll wait in my car." After a long while, George came out and joined me. He said, "I'll find out who she is and Perez will regret it." Then he said, "Let's go, not for drinks, but for answers, from Mary." Mary was there at the bar, but not working. When she saw us, she waved to the bar guy for 2 gin and tonics. After he put them down for us, she hugged George, gave my hand a squeeze, then said, "Hi guys, always good to see you too." Without thinking, I said, "Hi Mary, nice to see you." George looked at her hard and said, "Mary, what's up?" Her face fell and she said, "George, you got it right again. I got sick with bad diseases from CEC. That's why I can't work at the bar. I'm sick and don't want to make anyone else sick. I'm done selling my body and I'm done with school. I'm just going to get by without being a nurse or selling myself." George cut in fast. "You're not done with school." Mary dropped her head and said, "No, I can get by with this job if I don't save for school. Good enough for now." George got mad, took her arm and said, "No, it's not good enough. You dreamed of being a nurse that day in jail, and you've been working towards it every day. I'm glad you're done selling yourself, but I won't let you just give up." I said, "We'll find another way, Mary." She looked at us, tears in her eyes, and said, "I couldn't ask for better friends, but I can't and won't ask you guys to help. That would not be right." George and I gave each other a look. I said, "Fine, you're not asking. And you can't stop us, so we're not talking about it anymore." We laughed, and then I brought up something new. "George," I asked, "any jobs opening at the base?" Before he could say anything, Mary got serious. "Guys," she said, "there are 2 things you need to know. First, I know you guys were keeping an eye on Will Perez. I can see his room door through the bar's front windows, and I hope you catch him soon." George nodded, stone-faced. The first thing I did after finding out I got sick from love was to make him sick too. My jaw hit the floor. Why? She looked at me mean, because I wanted to make him feel bad. In a dark voice, George asked Mary, "What did he do to you?" "Nothing to me." "But he hurt a young woman?" "No, a young girl. I saw her walking funny out of his place when I was on my way to work. She could hardly stand. I tried to help her. She was crying. Her face was hurt and red. Her dress was ripped. She only let me walk her to her car. Then she drove off." Mary then told George. She might have been 20 and she wore a suit that showed she was in the Air National Guard. "She's one of your people." "I know," George said. "I'll find her and make sure she gets help, and he will wish he never did what he did." Looking at me, he said, "And I think David has some secret plans he hasn't shared yet. We can talk." I went to sleep close to midnight. March was already asleep, and now George knew all about what I was thinking. He also wanted to see if Mary could work in base buying stuff. They needed to fill some jobs soon. Saturday was quiet. Marge and I didn't talk much. We watched a movie like always. But when I came with drinks, Marge sat in the middle of the couch with Tom and Julia by her side. Normally, Marge and I sit together, and the kids sit next to us on the couch. I took a chair, seeing Tom and Julia looking odd while Marge seemed proud. Marge went to bed early. I used the time to check the voice recorders, but found nothing. She got an email from Perez, saying thanks for Friday and can't wait for next Wednesday. We didn't really talk Sunday, we just acted like everything was normal. I went to sleep a bit before Marge and saw she still went to change in the bathroom. She had to know her lies and cheating were hurting us bad. She slipped into bed quietly, but with a bit of a jerk, making sure I felt it. I kept quiet when she turned her back to me right away. That was okay by me. She could keep her sickness. On Monday, George gave me a call. He said they found the lady who was attacked. She ended up at a local hospital, and after some chat, she was ready to speak out against Perez. He also told me they were going to storm in next Monday morning. He hoped I could steer clear of Marge this week to avoid any slip-ups with Perez. I agreed again and said I'd tell Marge I would be out from Wednesday to Sunday, but in truth, I'd book a room at the motel and work out the plan I told him about. Next, I rang up Kevin at the motel and got the room right above Perez's for 5 days. At dinner on Monday, I told Marge and the kids about my supposed trip from Wednesday to Sunday. Julia and Tom were bummed. Marge didn't show much of anything. Tuesday, Marge and I hardly spoke. After everyone went to sleep, I packed a bag and placed it in my car. I checked the voice records. One chat caught my ear. It was Marge talking to Ashley this morning. Marge said, "Ashley, that jerk is messing up. Will or David?" Ashley sounded mixed up. "David? We've been off or just not talking for days. He said last night he's going away Wednesday morning and won't be back till Sunday. So I won't get to have fun with both the same day." Ashley went, "Marge, you need to sort things with your husband before dreaming the big dreams. This has dragged on too long." "Yeah," Marge went on. "If only David would stop being so annoying, I'd make his day. I don't get why he makes things hard." Great, so she's messing around. And I'm the tough one. I saved the file anyway. I went to work early on Wednesday, but left at noon to check into the hotel. I took the video tool from my car and set it up with 2 laptops in the room for the next few days. This way I could watch the live feed and use the internet at the same time. Then I waited until about 1. Through the window, I saw Marge come and walk to her room. She had her laptop with her and turned on the live feed. I saw her hug and kiss him. She said she needed to check her email first and then started her laptop and hooked it up to the hotel's Wi-Fi. They both were busy on their computers for about 10 minutes. As soon as she said she was done, he lifted her up and carried her to the bed. As he put her down, he said, "I need to be with you, baby." She pulled him closer for a kiss and said, "And I need you to be with me." I turned the volume down and logged into Perez's computer from afar, and from his, I got into Marge's laptop while they took off their clothes. Then I got busy. They were together, rough and intense, for nearly 2 hours, then slept holding each other. They woke up around 5 p.m., which left me 4 hours to snoop through their computers. When they began to stir, I logged out but kept watching. She woke first, glanced around, saw the clock, then him. She nudged him awake, saying, "Will, wake up, honey, we dozed off." He woke with a grunt and lay back. He asked, "What time is it?" "A bit past 5, I gotta go." "Me too," he said. Promised my wife a dinner out. She lightly hit him. Hey, I don't want to hear about that. I hear too much about your husband and kids. Don't forget, he said as he began to get up. She held him back. Honey, sorry I said that. I do love my life. Just sometimes I'm jealous thinking of you with your wife. I know, baby. What we're doing is tough for us, he said. I'm happy you haven't been with your husband lately. I like thinking your body is just for me, she said back. It's not yours. I choose to share it with you. But I love my man, and I need to make things right with him. I've been ignoring him for weeks. I do love being with you. Please know you make me feel so good, but I can't mess up my marriage. He stepped back and said, Hey, I can't let my wife find out either. As he stood up, he said, Man, my shoulders hurt a lot. She was shocked and said, Will, I'm sorry I scratched you. I really am, man. He went to see his scratches in the mirror. Man, you really got me good, he said. I'm so sorry. She cried getting out of bed, then cried out in pain as she stood. Oh, I'm sorry. She touched her sore spot and screamed. You jerk, you said you'd be careful. You hurt me and now I'm marked. Yeah, I didn't ask you to hurt me like that. How do I hide this from my wife? Sorry, Marge said softly. We just can't keep calm, it seems. I guess. He said, Let's clean up and go. I need to get home. When they were dressed, he kissed her cheek, touched her gently, and said, See you, love. She kissed him and then left, looking out the window. I saw her walk back to our house. She walked like she was in pain, like it would hurt for days. She would have to deal with that. Thursday and Friday, I switched between work and my own stuff. Thursday afternoon, Marge called to say it was over. She couldn't do this anymore. They argued, but agreed to talk later. Late Friday, I checked in. I moved files from one computer to another, sent some emails, then deleted the bad software I put on Marge's and Perez's computers. I also cleared their history. I got into Marge's laptop through Perez's since I knew the motel's internet would show up. I sent all her work stuff to Perez. Then I went back home on Sunday. No one was there. I grabbed the voice recorders, wiped them clean, and decided to give them back to George, including the one from her car. After that, I just relaxed until Julia and Marge got back from shopping. Tom showed up when we were putting groceries away, and we had a quiet evening. The next morning at work, around 11, I got a call from our family doctor's office. The person on the phone said the doctor needed to see me today. I asked why, but they wouldn't say much. Finally, the doctor himself talked to me, saying he needed to do some tests right away. I pressed him for a reason, half joking about whether I needed surgery or to update my will. His tone got serious, and he shared that my wife came to see him feeling unwell. After some tests, they found she had 3 sexually transmitted diseases. She said I was the only one she had been with, meaning I might have them too. I told him I'd be right there. When I got there, the usually friendly place felt cold. A nurse with no smile took my blood with a really big needle, and it hurt a lot. About an hour later, Dr. Vincent came in. Benson walked in looking confused. He started to talk while still walking. David, you're not sick with any bad sex disease. I'm sorry for what I said on the phone. I thought Marge was right, but she lied. I get it, doctor. I'm happy I'm okay. I told him Marge and I haven't been close for a while. I now see she was with someone else. I'm sorry. Here are your test papers. Just then, my phone rang. It was my girl. I said, Doctor, sorry, but my girl never calls midday unless it's big. He nodded as I picked up to hear Julia crying. Dad, what's wrong? Mom said you cheated and got her sick. She cried. How could you? Julia, I'm with the doctor now. I'm not sick, I said softly. Let me have the doctor say it. After he gave me back the phone, Julia cried. Dad, I'm so sorry I didn't trust you. Really sorry. It's just, Mom was so sure when she told us we just believed her. It's okay, baby, I said. Now tell your brother what's true, but don't let your mom know we spoke. I'll be home soon. When I went to pay at the desk, she pushed some papers to me, saying, Here are your clean test results. The strict rules here mean we can't talk about your wife's health. Pushing more papers to me, she added. But I might have messed up and given you her reports, too. She looked at me and smiled. I knew then Marge wouldn't be liked here when she came for her sick visit. I thanked her and went home for the last face-off. Getting home. I saw Marge's folks were over for a big show. I parked and went in through the kitchen. I heard voices from the other room, talking and crying. But what I saw first was my father-in-law, a big man, once a coal miner. He stood tall and wide, hard to miss. There he was, red-faced, glaring at me with hate, fists ready. He had all my focus. His voice cut through, "You hurt my kid and made her sick. I'll make you pay." I had moments to dodge a bad beatdown. I stepped close, looked him in the eye, and said, "If I did that, you'd be right to be mad." But I didn't. He paused, mixed up. After a beat, he said, "Talk. Fast." I handed over the medical papers. He read them over and over, then looked at them, silent, as cries grew louder in the back. At last he looked at me. "You're not sick. My girl's got a disease, but not from you." "She lied and was with someone else," I told him. "We've been distant. Didn't touch, so I'm safe, but you couldn't know that." "David, I'm sorry for what I said, what I thought." "It's okay. Thanks for hearing me out. Looks like my marriage is done. Maybe my life. But glad you listened." We moved to join the others, but he stopped. "Marge said just one STD, chlamydia. But you said more?" "Yeah, syphilis and gonorrhea too," I said. His look hardened. "Let's talk." I pushed back, holding him by his shirt. "She's yours, but my wife. She shouldn't drag her folks or our kids into this mess." "But she did. My little Julia's crying. Don't know what my son thinks." We stood firm, ready to face what comes. There I was, mad as heck, staring at a big dude who looked like he could toss me far away. "I don't care what you think," I snapped. "This is about my family. Stay out. Got it?" In a calm voice, he said, "Yes, I got it." His name was David. We then walked back to where my family was. My wife Marge and her mom were yelling at me. Poor Tom was in a chair, sobbing. Then Julia, my kid, ran to me, hugging tightly, saying, "Daddy, I love you." Tom came over too, and I got hugs from both sides. All the while, my mother-in-law was making a scene, and Marge was in tears. Julia noticed the papers in my hand and looked me in the eye. "Is this it?" she asked. I nodded. She read through the medical reports, then showed Tom the key parts. They looked at each other, then hugged me even tighter. Marge's mom was furious. "How can you hug that liar?" she shouted. "He cheated on your mom and got her sick." Marge cried harder on the couch. Julia went over to her grandma with the papers. After a minute, her grandma hid her face. Marge yelled out, "What? What's so different now?" "He cheated and got me sick." But Julia showed her mom the papers, pointing out that I was not the one who was sick, but Marge was. Julia told her mom, "You lied to us. You cheated, not Dad." Marge was shocked and swung at Julia, who blocked it quickly. "Don't you ever try that again," Julia told her mom, standing strong. "You've lost that, right? You are my mom, and I love you." As she stood up, she added, "But you're a liar. You tried to make my brother and me hate our dad to hide your own stuff. I can't forgive that." She came back to me, and both my kids hugged me. Marge looked at us and quickly tried to defend herself. "Kids, maybe your dad gave me the sickness 2 or 3 weeks ago, by mistake. Maybe he didn't know he got it from someone. He must have felt sick before me and maybe went to a clinic. We haven't been close for a while. I have asked David for love. He said no with sad eyes." Marge looked everywhere but at me and said, "I didn't cheat on your dad. I never would, but he did. And now he's trying to make it look like I did. Trust me, I haven't been with anyone but him since we met. Now everyone but Marge and I were confused. I saw that Marge's dad wanted to hit me. Time to push harder. One last chance for Marge to be honest. Maybe we could fix our marriage, forget everyone else." I looked straight at Marge and said, "Marge, this is it. I have proof. Just tell the truth and maybe we can fix this." I hoped she would be honest, but she got mad. "You creep, you cheating jerk. You have no proof because I never cheated. You're lying to my family. You're shaming me. Show us your proof." "Fine," I said. Marge didn't look so sure as I got my laptop, hooked it to the TV, and turned it on quickly. I thought, the payback I had been planning for weeks was already happening to Perez. Now it was Marge's turn. I hadn't planned on others being involved, but here we are. Last Wednesday, while Marge kept Perez busy, I took one of his business cards to buy a website name and set up a site. For the next 2 days, I built that site we were about to see. Looking at Marge, I asked, "You left him last Thursday, right?" She laughed at me. "You're out of your mind. There's only you for me. But after today, you might want someone else," I said. I put up an email on our big TV and clicked on a message. "Know this guy?" His name was Will Perez. Marge went white and whispered, "A week, no." He sent her a link to his site. "You're all over it." That was one of the last messages I sent using his computer. Turning to Julia and Tom, I said, "Time for you guys to head upstairs." Julia said no. She dragged us into this. "We're staying," she said. Tom just said, "Dad, I saw the site link. Send us up and I'll be looking it up in 5 seconds." No one else said much, but Tom was going to check out the link anyway. He must have wondered why I was about to show them a site called The Bitches of Perez. I nodded to my kids and clicked the link. A blue screen popped up and a deep voice filled the room. "Welcome to Will Perez's, bitches." Pictures of women in clothes started showing up while the voice kept going. "I'm showing off the women I've taken to bed. Most are married women who fall for sweet talk. I filmed them without them knowing. Check out the videos." Marge let out a loud gasp, seeing her world fall apart. The voice now sounded just like Perez. I had worked hard to match it to him. "Take a look at the women. Got some videos and audio for each. Like what you see? Drop me an email. I got clear videos of these ladies messing around with me for a little cash. You can have them. These videos are secret. These married ladies don't know I'm sharing them with everyone." Everyone looked closely at the fourth picture. It was Marge. She wore her normal work clothes, a gray suit that fit her well. I moved the mouse to her picture, and we heard about Margie. She's in her 50s, but really 44. Not in great shape and not very tight. She's had a tough time, but still likes fun. She was fast to get close to me. I got many videos of Marge. Click this to see and hear bits of Marge. Email me for more videos and prices. Everyone turned to look at Marge, who was pale and shaking, looking at the screen. She whispered, "No, this can't be real. No." Clicking on Marge's picture showed a screen with 8 clips of Marge. Marge's eyes got wide as she saw the screen. She knew the place and maybe some of her moves. She started crying. Her mom put her arm around her. Her dad looked shocked. Our kids were angry. I moved away from the computer and said, "I think we've seen enough." "No," Julia said, "I haven't. These could be fake. I want to know what's really happening," she said, moving past me to the mouse and clicked on the first image. As the video clip loaded, Tom went to her and put his arm around her. She hugged him back hard. The scene showed a naked Marge kneeling by the bed with someone's parts in her mouth. Her head moved as her tongue worked. Then she looked up at him and the camera and with a flirty smile said, "I love this." "Yuck, that's gross." Julia was in shock. "How could you?" she cried out. Tom was shocked too, but didn't speak. Marge's dad hugged his wife while Marge just stood there, frozen. Then Julia clicked on another link. A video showed Marge in a bad state again. Her mom gasped. When the video ended, Marge said in a flirty way, "You taste great, lover." Loud sobs filled the room. No one spoke as Julia clicked the third link. It was more bad stuff. When it was over, I said, "We've seen enough, Julia." She nodded, tears running down her face. She and her brother hugged me. Tom was crying, and so were Marge's parents. Marge broke down in her mom's arms. "We need to talk," I said after a minute. Marge tried to speak through her tears. "I don't know, so sorry, God," was all she could say. I gave Tom the car keys. "Go out for a bit. Need money?" Tom said no, they had it covered. They left to eat out. After they were gone, I told Marge and her parents, "We'll talk in 30 minutes. I needed some air." I came back 40 minutes later. Marge and her parents were at the kitchen table. Marge thanked me for coming back. "Sit. We've got another problem," I said, looking at her. She looked scared and so tired. I told them, "Marge, Perez was caught today." Her eyes went wide. "George found out Perez was doing bad things at work. He tricked the government and took bribes." 3 folks just looked at me hard. Turns out he's been with lots of other women, not just you. I gave her a cold smile. He paid real hookers too, the type you just give cash for a quick time. Plus he had sneaky cams in his love spot to tape it all. Pointing at the TV, I spoke. "On this site, you can see all he did with those tapes." Marge was now bawling her eyes out. I went on. His office, his work, and his secret spot got hit by the law today. Also, one dude in your shipping team and another in buying got nabbed, standing up and moving to Marge. I said more. George found emails from you to Perez where you spilled secrets about deals and what others charge. Marge's head shot up and she gasped. "No way, I'd never do that," her mom cut in. And why should we trust that? Marge cried harder. Dear mom-in-law, seems you haven't figured out your daughter's done plenty she shouldn't, I shot back. The only reason you're not behind bars is 'cause you're, at least for now, my wife. George is letting things slide. But if you're not in his office at dawn tomorrow, the military police will take you there. Standing before her, I told her, Marge, if you did this, you're looking at serious jail time. She wept. I didn't. You've got no cause to trust me, but I didn't leak any job stuff to him. Staring back at me, she spilled more. Yes, I lied to you. Yes, I was with him and he left me sick. And even worse, I tried to pin it on you to hide my mess. I thought if we were together after I got sick, you'd have it too. I never wanted this. I can't think you'd forgive me or stay with me now. I've wrecked my family and my life, and if I had leaked any info, jail would be right for me. I'm left with nothing. But that I did not do. I asked Marge, did you ever bring your laptop to that secret spot? She nodded. A few times, yeah. I needed to work, but still wanted afternoons free. Sorry, I yelled. You took afternoons off to mess around. She winced and nodded. Marge, did he ever get into your laptop? Did you ever finish with him, then go for a shower or sleep while still on the base's network? Again, she nodded, not meeting my gaze. I grabbed her laptop and fired it up fast, then killed our internet. I had to, because one of the last things I did on Marge's computer was to set up a huge email, making it seem like Perez did it, with our internet off. The emails couldn't go out, but this was another thing to blame on Perez. I acted shocked about needing a password and had her tell it to me. After a while, I looked up. Marge, he put a sneaky program on your computer to take it over and see everything. There's a login for Perez. She looked up, shocked again. He framed me, she cried out, nodding. I agreed. Looks like he wanted more than just, you know. I saw her flinch, kept going. I came back to your laptop, waited, then told her straight. Turning off the internet was smart. He had set up a task to blast his email to everyone you know. I told her, family, friends, work, church, everyone. You dumped him Thursday, and this was his revenge. Marge just crumbled, and her mom hugged her. But this might keep you out of jail. All three looked at me. So I added, this shows he could control your laptop. Could use it to grab sensitive info. Right now, Horridge thinks you sent Perez those files. This shows Perez might have done it. And those website trails, IP addresses. If you're not lying, Margie, it'll show. The plan was simple but smart. By logging into Perez's computer when I sent him emails, it made him look guilty, not me. I went further. I had put camera software on Perez's computer and moved all the video files there. It seemed like he recorded those bad videos, including one of an attack. Because it looked like Perez's work, the videos could be shown in court. Perez was in deep trouble now. I also sent voice recordings of him trying to blackmail right over to his computer. Horridge could use those, too. Lastly, I used Perez's computer to log into Margie's and sent him some business stuff. This made it look like he did it from his motel. Skip ahead. A few months after Perez's big court case, he was found guilty of attack and making those videos. When he got out of jail, he had to tell everyone he was a sex offender. He was also found guilty of stealing, lying for money, blackmail, and being part of a crime group. Mar had to speak out about her secret relationship in front of everyone in court, and it was all over the news. Perez kept saying he was innocent about the website and the hidden cameras. But because those files were found on his computer and a girl spoke about being hurt, the court was very strict. He got 23 years in jail, but could ask for parole after 11 years. Right when he went to jail, the tax people came after him for not paying taxes on the money he got wrongly, and they also started checking his businesses. On his second day there, his wife asked for a divorce. A week later, George and I were at the bar where Mary used to work. Mary left the bar job because she got a better job and started nursing school. She was moving up, thanks to her new gig. I told George, remember what I owe you for those recording bits I gave to Perez? He said he would. Then with a big smile added, you and me, we each spent $1,500 yesterday. Nice, I said back. This drink isn't as good as Mary's, but it's okay. George didn't listen. He said he knew the boss of the guards where Perez is kept. He met him at his top bar spot some days ago. He talked about Perez, saying he watched the trials and thought George did good to lock up a real bad guy. George told him he wasn't done with Perez. He wanted him to have a hard time every day in jail. Then he passed him a paper with an envelope under it filled with our $3,000. Now the white and black gangs in jail think Perez did bad things because of what George told, and the army guys think Perez hurt one of them. The guard has to make sure Perez stays alive but has a tough time. George doesn't care what happens after. I looked at George for a long while, then just said, "Thanks." Right then, Mike came in. He looked really bad. He came to us. I ordered another round. The new girl made better drinks. I knew Mike would come. I told him where I'd be. That day, I had to give him a file with bad news about our wives and what happened between Marge and me. Mike took a sip and then looked at George. "I need to borrow some spy gear from you," he said. And so it started again. 2 weeks later, Perez had to go to court for not paying his taxes. I didn't know about it, but Marge did. She was there that day. I bent down and grabbed some dirt. My mind flashed back to that court scene when I saw Marge get up. She was in her gray clothes. She took my gun, a big one, and shot Perez 3 times in the chest. The guards shot back lots. When the noise stopped, all was quiet. I let the dirt fall on the coffin of my true love. I knew then that I had got my revenge, but I also knew I'd have to live with this for all my sad days ahead. Take a breath before moving on to the second story. Dear listeners, tell us which story you like more. Which husband is truly smart and a real man? We are always ready to listen to your opinions and do our best to improve the quality of the next videos. Love you guys. When I got to my folks' house, I knew something was off. We were all meeting for dinner, but it didn't feel right. My gut told me I was onto something when I stepped out of my car and caught my son and my dad in the middle of a fight. "Damn it, Gramps, this is wrong." "Mind your tongue, boy. You're in my house." "I don't care about that. I won't do this." "Bradley!" yelled my mom. Brad stormed out and stopped dead when he saw me. He still looked mad, but his eyes popped wide. "Dad, I didn't want this." "What?" I felt a bad feeling growing in my belly. We looked as my parents and my fiancée, Karen, came out. Each had a different look. Dad was poker-faced. Mom looked like she meant business. Karen seemed scared and worried. "This is wrong," Brad yelled back before shaking his head in dislike and facing me again. "Run, Dad, it's a setup," he said cold. "Mom's inside." That made me feel sick. Thinking of my ex-wife even 2 years later still hit hard. The anger was gone, but the mess of our split pushed me to cut her out of my life. I'd only talked to her twice after finding out she cheated. Once when I left, and again when she got the divorce papers. I watched as Brad got into his car and took off fast. Then I turned to face my surprise party crew. Oddly, I was calm. I had been against this, and my feelings were clear, but others thought I needed it. Their trap was set. They made their move, and whatever they meant by it, there were going to be results. But now, I had to deal with what was in front of me. It felt like jumping out of a plane. You could freak out as much as you want, but you're still falling. If the parachute works, you'll likely be okay. Thinking like this helped me stay calm as I looked at what I was dealing with. Thinking back on my life, I went through all the memories quickly. Sadly, I kept coming back to the last few years, and Deidre. We had a decent 26 years together. We met in college, got married, finished school, found jobs, had 3 kids, and bought the usual stuff like cars and a house. If there were warning signs of trouble, I missed them. Neither Deidre nor I were ever the center of attention. We were pretty normal. I'm a bit tall and skinny, with curly black hair and a big nose that shows I'm from a Mediterranean background. My black glasses and the pen holder I always carry show I'm an engineer. Deidre could have been at a Harry Potter book club, a geeky, slim librarian type. She's almost 6 feet tall, but only weighs 130 pounds. Her long, straight brown hair and big glasses that make her dark brown eyes stand out have always been part of her. She may not have been a model, but I thought her lean frame and small chest were beautiful. She was my dream woman until everything changed. Home life wasn't always smooth. We fought, often about money. We both had good jobs. I was an engineer and Deidre was a technical writer, but we had some big bills to pay in the last 10 years. Buying a home, paying for college for our 3 kids, and covering 2 weddings had stretched our funds thin. But other than the house, I wouldn't have changed a thing. I thought things would be different when our kids left home. We were both 47, healthy, had jobs, a house, and an okay sex life. It was pretty plain, but we were intimate at least once a week. Our romance, though, was hit or miss. I tried to keep the spark alive, but it wasn't easy. We aimed for a date night every week, but it turned out to be more like once a month because of work and other stuff. When our youngest, Brad, went to college, Deidre threw herself into her job. She was well respected at her company, and now she dove into a big project, leading a team to redo their training materials. Her job took up more and more time, which became a big issue between us. I was proud of her, but her focus on work sometimes worried me. It seemed like her job was now her top thing in life. After 15 months, she finished the project and got high praise from her bosses. Her work was so good, it was up for awards with the National Writers Group and her company's professional group. I watched her get her award at the Tech Writers Conference. I was so proud, even though her project had taken up so much time. Deidre glowed as she enjoyed her moment of fame. The company's big annual conference was next, a month later, and it was a huge event. It was way bigger than the first, since tech writing was just one part of it. Deidre's work group was big, so her boss agreed to cover trip costs for each worker, but not their partners. I had used most of my holiday time, and we had spent a lot on the last meetup, so Deidre went to this one alone. She shared a room with a coworker. It wasn't a huge deal. She had gone to these things without me before. But if I had known what would go down in those 4 days in Chicago, I would have made it work to go with her. Looking back is always clearer. I didn't know then that our marriage was in trouble. Deidre came back sick. She said she caught some flu bug and got very ill on the last night. She had drunk a lot at the party and got very sick. Or so I thought for 3 months until I got a visit I didn't expect. Mrs. Jordan was a fancy, good-looking woman in her 60s. She was married to Thomas Jordan, the vice president at Deidre's work. I had met him a few times. He looked neat, in his 50s, with grayish hair. He seemed proud, but maybe that was just because of his job. My chat with his wife told me a lot. It turns out Mr. Jordan liked to look at other women. She had caught him cheating early on, but they got past it. She thought he stayed true until 2 years back. Then, doubts and lies started again. 6 months ago, she'd had it. Mrs. Jordan had hired someone to find proof for her to use in divorce. She said she knew of his long-time affair, but it wasn't with Deidre. Sadly, she also found out about his night with my wife in Chicago. It seemed like a one-time thing, but she wasn't sure. She quit the search right after the trip to Chicago because she found what she needed for the divorce. The pictures she gave me of my wife and her boss were enough to stop my heart. They showed my wife and the VP dancing too close in a dance hall. There were shots of them kissing and even some of Jordan with his hands under my wife's short black dress, both looking way too happy. Another set caught them sneaking into a hotel bathroom. They came out minutes later with Deidre fixing her dress and her makeup back on. Her face was red, and she had that look of someone who just had a quick fling. The last photos had them all cozy as they went into his hotel room. Even though none showed too much, it was clear what happened on that last night of the conference. Mrs. Jordan left me her report and those photos. Right then, I knew my marriage was done. Could I have gotten over a one-time slip? Maybe, but hard to say. Any trust left was now gone. Her lying about it for months hurt us as much as the cheating did. When I got home that night, Deidre was still out, probably working late again. I wondered if she was actually working or sneaking around with Jordan or someone else from work. That's how it goes, right? Once trust is gone, it's really hard to get it back. Most times you never do, and if it does come back, it's never as strong. Doubt sneaks into every corner, making you doubt everything, old and new. What once seemed okay now felt suspicious. By the time Deidre got home, I was almost packed. I left the pictures that showed the most on the table. When I stepped out of the room with my bags, I saw her sitting sad in the kitchen. She looked up at me, her eyes full of tears. "Billy," she said in a soft voice, "I'm sorry." "Not sorry enough to tell me the truth, huh?" I snapped. "Would you have ever told me?" "No," she said with a tear running down her face. I banged the door shut as I left. 4 days later, she got the papers for our divorce. She tried to call me a lot in those first few days, but I was very mean. I told her nothing she could say would change anything and to never call me again. Was it too much? Maybe, but I was hurt. A hurt she caused, so I didn't care about her feelings then. I didn't mean to cut Deidre out completely. I needed time to think, away from her. I was hurt and mad, but still not sure about ending our marriage. It could have been just one mistake, but trust was gone. I didn't think I could live with what our marriage would become. Sure, my friends and family had their say. Some said to leave her, but many thought we should fix things since we had been together so long. My parents talked the most. After a lot of thinking, I chose to move on. Not everyone liked that. My parents, kids, and friends didn't like my choice. I was always defending why I was leaving while everyone tried to make me give Deidre another chance. They asked why I couldn't forgive her, and I always shot back asking why she couldn't stay faithful if she really loved me. Every talk turned into an argument. I got tired and annoyed that it seemed like I was being blamed for the divorce, and I told everyone that talking about Deidre and the divorce was no longer up for discussion. I made it clear I didn't want to talk or be near anyone who couldn't respect that. Some got it, many did not. The fights with those who didn't got pretty bad. When her name came up, I'd leave right away. Quietly if I could, loudly if I had to. Not a shock, but telling friends that since they thought it was okay and not a big deal, if I could have their wives for a weekend didn't go well. Nor did it go well when I told them I was moving on, and if they didn't like it, they could deal with it their way. I lost a lot of friends then. My kids kind of stood by me after I made my choice, even though they wished somehow mom and dad could make it work. They were mad at their mom but didn't leave her side. I tried not to make them pick who to stand with, but I was firm they couldn't talk to me about her. My kids listened, but my parents didn't. My mom liked Deidre and couldn't stand we were splitting up. I got my Greek side from her. She's pretty forward and doesn't really listen if she doesn't agree. My dad, well, he's a whole other kind of forward. Spent 20 years as a drill sergeant in the Army. He's been called tough, but that's putting it mildly. On their own, dealing with them is tough but doable. But when they team up, they're like a storm. My divorce seemed wrong to them, so they kept giving me advice. They kept on about my duties and promises, no matter what Deidre did. After our 5th big fight, they finally understood. Deidre was a topic we couldn't touch. Sadly, I had to tell my parents that if they ever talked about her or my upcoming divorce again, I'd cut ties with them, since I was the only kid they still talked to often. My oldest brother died in a crash 20 years back. He wasn't married and had no kids. My 2 older sisters, Rose and Monica, left because our parents wouldn't stop meddling in their lives. They barely spoke to my parents for over 10 years, so when I said what I said, my parents had to listen. I did meet Deidre one last time. She wanted to see me face to face before she would sign the divorce papers. I knew it would hurt, and it did. "Bill, I'm sorry," she said in a low voice. "It doesn't fix things, but I wanted you to know it was just once. You might not believe me, but it's true." "You're right, Deidre," I answered with no warmth. "It doesn't fix anything, and why should I believe you?" I saw my words hit her, even though she tried to hide it, but she didn't stop. I wish I could say I was drunk, but I wasn't that drunk. I could have stopped it. Why then? She let out a long sigh. "That's hard to explain for both of us. It's not like I wasn't happy with you. But that's not fully true, is it? If I was completely happy, I wouldn't have strayed." "So you're saying this is my fault?" I cut in. "No," she shouted, then calmed down a bit. "Oh no, please don't think that. What I mean is, you couldn't give me what I was looking for. Nobody could. I needed your love and support, but I also needed to do well on my own and feel proud from what others said. No, you couldn't fulfill all my desires as no individual could possibly do so. It was my arrogance that led to my downfall, my unwavering belief that I had complete control of the situation. When we received our award, I became so engrossed in celebrating my achievement that I became careless. I thought I had everything under control and that nothing could harm me. How foolish and conceited was I? When Mr. Jordan showered me with endless praise, I reveled in it. I was the center of attention, with people congratulating me from every direction. Between the overwhelming attention and the influence of alcohol, I became careless and allowed myself to be carried away by the moment. When he escorted me to his hotel room, I knew what was about to occur. I will forever regret not putting a stop to it earlier. I cannot provide you with an exact explanation as to why I succumbed and entered his room. However, I can admit that I had already crossed numerous boundaries and betrayed you. My actions at the party, the teasing, the inappropriate touching, the passionate kissing, and even allowing him to grope me in a hotel bathroom all contributed to my guilt. Her voice trembled as she spoke. She turned away, wiping her tears. Facing me once again, she composed herself and continued. After it happened, I was devastated. I hid in his bathroom until he left. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I saw a faithless and immoral woman staring back at me. The weight of my guilt was undeniable, impossible to hide from my own eyes. I witnessed my world slowly crumbling on the edge of a precipice. I fully acknowledged that I was the one who pushed it there, but I was desperately searching for a way to halt its descent. I want you to know, Bill, that despite appearances, I love you deeply and I need your love. Your love and support have been the foundation upon which I have built my life. When I returned home after the conference, I realized that there was no scenario in which I could confess to you and salvage our marriage. Throughout our relationship, we both made it abundantly clear that infidelity was an unforgivable offense that would lead to the end of our marriage. I made the decision not to disclose the truth to you. My reasons were selfish but also practical. You did it so you wouldn't lose anything, right? I mocked. Her face fell like I'd slapped her. My pain and rage were boiling up and I wasn't hiding it. I told you I was being selfish, she whispered. I knew telling the truth would hurt us both. I wouldn't put myself in that mess again. It was a one-time slip I'd make sure to avoid in future. I didn't leave or ask for a new job because I hardly saw Mr. Jordan, just at our weekly meetings. Plus, if I left, you'd get suspicious and start asking. You're clever and would have guessed something bad happened in Chicago. Billy, I love you, believe it or not. The thought of you hurting because of what I did was too much. My guilt was heavy, enough for both of us. I chose to live with my shame in silence forever. I hoped for a second chance. I promised to heaven and any God out there I'd never mess up again, and if I could, I'd be the best wife ever. But it didn't work out. Maybe, I said with frost, they remembered your wedding vows and knew, like I do now, your promises mean nothing. She looked at me, eyes full of hope. She wished, like me, we could fix what was broken. But it was too late. Deidre signed the divorce papers after our talk. They were fair about what a judge would say. After that, we didn't talk. Months later, our divorce was final and I was left to move on. My kids, Kathy, Mary, and Brad, helped me that first year after. I wasn't as torn up as during the divorce, but still sharp and bitter. They were there for their mom, too, but we never talked about it. They were kind enough to keep quiet. Talking to my parents was hard. Every time we talked, it was like my failed marriage was in the room with us. I didn't know how long this would last, but then things changed when they met my new love. I waited a few months after my divorce before dating again. It was rough. I guess I hoped for too much because many of the women I met were just as hurt as I was. Those who weren't probably couldn't wait to leave because my bitterness spoiled our time together. So I kept going like this for about 7 months until Karen came into my life. She was like sunshine. Karen was small but full of life. Her dark hair and big smile made her pretty face even prettier. She was short and a bit round, but in a lovely way. She had been away from her mean husband for about 9 years when we met. She had a son who turned out mean like his dad and went away 3 years before we got together. Behind her bright smile, Karen was very scared and found it hard to trust people. That was putting it lightly. When Karen met my parents, I wasn't sure what they would think. I should have known better. Karen was just so likable. My parents, who were okay with Deidre, loved Karen. After only meeting her twice, they welcomed her like family. Karen wasn't without her problems, with trust being a big one, and I had my issues too. But she made my life bright again, and I fell deeply in love with her. When I asked her to marry me, she said yes, but with a few conditions since we had only been seriously together for about 6 months. First off, we agreed we'd take at least a year before getting hitched, to make sure we weren't rushing. The second rule was a tough one. We were to get help from a counselor so we didn't bring our old marriage woes into the new one. A month in, we started seeing a counselor together. A bunch of small, ugly stuff came out from both sides. But we were getting through it. Yet, there was one thing Karen had a hard time with. I just wouldn't talk to my ex-wife. I had told Karen all about my past marriage and divorce. By now, I could talk about it without getting mad or sad. I figured Karen worried I might still like Deidre because, well, I did. After being together for over 20 years, you don't just stop feeling overnight. Sure, those feelings had changed. The love turned bitter and angry. Whatever love was left, it was so weak it couldn't touch my love for Karen. I saw no good in bringing up old pains and the mess from my divorce. but it seemed my views didn't matter much anymore. "Well, son," my dad barked, "are you going to man up or run away scared?" "Please, Will," Karen begged. "Talk to her." I just nodded, sad, and let out a big sigh. Stepping up to the porch, my mom tried to hug me, but I stepped back. "Don't touch me," I said, ice cold. I saw her face fall, realizing what her betrayal might cost her, and Karen looked shocked when she moved close, and I just shook my head. "Great," my dad mocked. "Gonna throw a fit too?" "Back off, old man," I shot back. "One more dumb remark from you and I'm out. So got anything else you want to say, jerk?" My dad's face turned beet red and the veins in his neck popped out. I wasn't certain if he would suffer a stroke right then and there. We had engaged in numerous shouting matches, but I had never verbally attacked him in that manner before. He tightened his fists, and I feared he might actually strike me. Despite being in good shape at 75, it wouldn't have been a fair fight. Sadly, things had escalated to the point where I would have struck my elderly father. This is a regrettable situation, I admitted to myself. Perhaps it is truly time to walk away and start anew. Surprisingly, he remained silent and motionless. I passed by him and entered the house. The sights and scents triggered a flood of memories instantaneously. This had been my parents' residence since my brother's passing. Every piece of furniture, the carpet, the walls, exuded my parents' essence. It was my second home. A profound sadness washed over me as I realized I might never step foot in this place again. My thoughts were abruptly interrupted when I spotted her seated in the living room. She rose, and I observed that she had lost more weight than was healthy. She appeared fatigued, and her smile seemed forced. Despite all that, I still saw the woman I had fallen in love with many years ago. The pain I still harbored must have been evident on my face, as I witnessed her smile fade. "I apologize, Billy," she murmured softly. "I warned them that this was a terrible idea, but they wouldn't listen." She snorted and attempted to conceal a slight smirk. "Your parents have never been ones to listen, have they?" I smirked in return. There was a great deal of truth in her words. The cold fury at their betrayal began to simmer in my mind. Unbeknownst to me, Deidre's reaction indicated that I was not concealing my dark thoughts. They have truly overstepped this time, haven't they? I nodded. "Beyond the point of reconciliation?" she inquired softly. "I am uncertain, but I believe so. I apologize. I attempted to reason with them, but I think they believed it was necessary for you and Karen to have a future together. Bill, despite the challenges they present, they truly care for you. Karen feels the same way about you as well. But does that mean they can disregard my wishes?" I retorted. Whether they viewed my decision as immature, stubborn, or incorrect, it was my decision to make, not theirs. It reflects their lack of respect towards me. At least the children were not involved in all of this, although I am somewhat surprised that you are. Well, Kathy and Mary both informed them that they wouldn't be involved. They advised all three of them against this course of action, emphasizing that it was a terrible idea. Brad was preoccupied with a significant school project and was apparently unaware of what was happening. This is not unexpected, given his intense focus on his studies and his goal of graduating at the end of the semester. As for me, it's quite straightforward. I gazed at the woman who had been my partner for more than 20 years and noticed her uneasy shift. There was a profound sorrow about her that was absent during our marriage. Strangely, it did not bring me the satisfaction I had anticipated. "Bill," she said with a melancholic smile, "no matter what I say or how you react to it, it won't worsen our situation. I have already lost you. You already despise me, so I have nothing more to lose. When your parents approached me about this, I initially declined. Even though I had nothing to lose, I did not want to cause you any more pain. Then Karen came to see me, and we had a lengthy conversation. She requested that I at least talk to you. I informed her of what I intended to say to you, and despite her disapproval, she agreed that I needed to be honest. I warned her that she was treading on dangerous ground, and regardless of my words or your reaction, she could still lose you easily. Unfortunately, she felt compelled to proceed. She genuinely loves you, but she is afraid that you still harbor strong feelings for me. It's fear, plain and simple. The children have shared some details about her and her past with me, and I believe that is the root of most of this. We both gazed at each other, enveloped in an uncomfortable silence. Eventually, I let out a deep sigh. "Very well, Deidre," I conceded. "Please speak your mind. How should we proceed?" "Billy," she murmured softly, "would you mind taking a walk with me in the backyard?" I nodded quietly, attempting to conceal my emotions. We wandered in silence through my parents' expansive backyard, away from any prying ears. She broke the silence with a hushed tone. "I apologize, Bill. You didn't deserve this." "And now," she sighed sadly, "now I'm going to complicate things further." She offered a weak smile at my surprise. "Bill, I've been foolish in many ways. I knew I had lost you when I slept with Mr. Jordan, but I never truly made an effort to express how sorry I was. I saw it as futile, so I didn't try. But I was mistaken. When we separated, I felt so guilty that I tried to respect your wish for no communication between us. I did it mostly so you could have space to figure out what you needed to do. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way. I knew that many of our friends and family had approached you about divorcing me. I tried to discourage it, but I think I came across as the remorseful sinner and made matters worse. I was genuinely remorseful, and I would have done anything to undo my mistake and save our marriage, but my regrets seemed to encourage your parents and some of our friends. I apologize for making you feel like you had to build a wall and cut off all communication with me. That's where I went wrong." I gazed at her silently for a moment. My bewilderment was evident, and she sadly smiled. "Even though I was trying to give you space, I failed to do one thing that could have helped us both heal afterward. Whether it was futile or not, I should have taken some action, any action, to show you how much you still meant to me." I began to speak, but she interrupted. "I know it wouldn't have prevented the divorce, but it might have facilitated a better healing process for both of us in the aftermath. There were numerous occasions when I contemplated reaching out to you and arranging a meeting to express my remorse, but you had already cut off all contact with me. I spent months trying to devise a plan to approach you, but then you met Karen. The children provided me with some information about her and how she was impacting you. I must admit I felt a pang of jealousy, but I came to the realization that you had moved on. I attempted to move forward as well, but I struggled. A significant part of my struggle stemmed from the fact that I needed closure with you. There were things I needed to say, but I was unsure of how to do so. Then an opportunity presented itself, granting me a second chance to address that mistake, even if I cannot undo the others. So, Bill," she gently took my hand, tears welling up in her eyes as she began to release the pain and frustration that had been buried for so long. "My husband," she whispered, "and to me you will always be my husband. I am deeply sorry. I cannot fathom the disappointment and pain I have caused you. I am ashamed of my actions and how they have tarnished the most precious thing in my life, our marriage. Yes, it was the most precious thing, but I neglected to protect it. Instead of cherishing it, I took it for granted and focused solely on myself. In doing so, I allowed it to be poisoned. In one evening, I shattered our family. I destroyed our future. Because of me, our children have had to divide their time between their mother and father instead of simply enjoying us as a family." I struggled to comprehend the weight of her words. If I thought my mind was in turmoil, it paled in comparison to the turmoil in my heart. "What is it that you desire, Deirdre? What are you seeking?" "What I desire is an opportunity to re-enter your life. What I desire is for this little scheme they orchestrated to make you question whether Karen is the person you truly want to spend the rest of your life with." "Do you really think I would leave Karen and take you back?" I asked. She smiled. "I won't lie and say that it doesn't sound appealing to me, but I understand that it can't happen that way. I know you, and I know that this little stunt has caused more damage to your relationship with Karen than she realizes. What I hope for is that after this, your relationship with her becomes less exclusive. I hope that you start dating other women again and that you consider me as one of them. Billy, I apologize for this unexpected situation, not for myself, because I finally have the opportunity to express my true feelings, but for you. Whatever decision you make, please make sure it is for yourself and not for anyone else. I know you have a lot to contemplate, so I will leave you in peace. I love you, Bill. Regardless of your choice, I fear that I always will to some extent." As she walked past me, she gently touched my arm. I looked into her eyes and saw a weariness mixed with relief. I felt the same weariness, but not the relief. I sat down on a bench on the patio, overwhelmed by Deidre's confession and proposition. After all this time, I questioned whether there could ever be any kind of relationship with my ex-wife, or if I even desired one. I heard the patio door open and sensed her cautious approach. Her timid voice brought my attention back to my fiancée, the woman who claimed to love me. Will? I didn't look up. I struggled to keep my thoughts and emotions separate, fearing they would ignite. Will, are we all right? No, I replied quietly. And the fact that you have to ask speaks volumes about our relationship. I know, she said, holding back a sob. I'm sorry. The problem is that you're not sorry enough to not have done this to me. Even now, you would do this to me again, wouldn't you? I'm sorry, Will, she said softly, sobbing. But I needed to know so badly, to know that... I understand, I interjected, that my love for you surpasses the love I had for my ex-wife, despite repeatedly expressing it to you. It seems actions truly speak louder than words, don't they? We both remained silent for a while, grappling with the words that needed to be said. Eventually, I let out a deep sigh and gazed at her. I apologize, Karen. I genuinely tried, I said softly. I made every effort to give you every reason to trust me, but it seems that you can't. Perhaps the fear and doubt from your past are too overpowering for you. No, she exclaimed. That's not true. You showed me today that I can trust you. You did something incredibly difficult and painful, and you did it for us. No, I sighed. I did it for you. All those previous attempts like couples counseling, those were for us, but today was solely for you. So, you telling me now that I passed some sort of test is all well and good, but I have to ask, at what cost? I'm sorry, Will. I needed to be certain. That's the issue. You needed to. But what about my needs? Karen, you're not the only one with trust issues. You claim that you can trust me now, but it's evident that I can't trust you. If I passed my test, then you failed yours. Today, your fears and insecurities overshadowed your supposed love for me. So what happens next week when something causes you to doubt me, or even us? What hoops will I have to jump through just to regain your trust? Karen, I said softly, I can't live like that. I don't possess the strength to bear that burden alone, even for a short while. Maybe I will be able to in the future, but not right now. Will, please, I'm deeply sorry, she pleaded, her voice trembling. Can you forgive me? Of course I forgive you, I replied calmly. But you knew I would, didn't you? You probably even relied on it to justify your actions. She nodded slightly and lowered her head in shame. But things have changed now, haven't they? She whispered. I nodded. So where does that leave us? I sat there in silence. I was exhausted, beyond exhausted. I was utterly drained. I no longer wanted to harbor anger. I'm not sure. We're not getting married now, but if we keep going out, that's your call. Will, that's not right. I know I hurt you. No, you don't get it, I cut in. What if I reached out to your ex and kid and planned a secret weekend trip just for you three? And you wouldn't know until you got there. Then you could fix any old hurt you had with them. I saw her start to get it as I spoke. Tears came soon after. And then I'd tell you it was for the best and say how proud I was for you facing your past. Maybe then you'd see how much you hurt me. Now she was crying a lot. I was shocked I didn't want to help. Maybe I was just too numb. I'm really sorry, she cried soft. Me too. I let out a sigh. Looks like we're back to square one. Do you still love me? She barely got out. Yes, I think so. To be real, I'm lost right now. I care about you, but things are different and I'm not sure how. You know I love you, right? That's not the best thing to ask me now, but yes. I think you love me as much as you can now. As much as I can, she whispered. I just nodded. But that's not enough, is it? If I said it was, I'd be lying. Maybe our love can get stronger if we both want that. So we go back to just seeing each other? I sighed. Looks like it. And what about her? Will you see her too? Deidre? I don't know, maybe. I hadn't thought about it before, and not while we were a thing. Things are messy now, so I need to think on it. Listen, Karen, I'm wiped. I need to head home and grab some things. Good thing I kept my place, so I'll crash there until we sort this out. I'll call you in a few days and we can decide where we go from here. I embraced her tightly, feeling the dampness of her tears against my chest. Planting a gentle kiss on the top of her head, I pulled away momentarily before tenderly kissing her on the lips. "Goodbye, Karen," I uttered, then made my way back into my parents' house. I knew I had to address them to bring about closure, as Deidre had put it. My mind raced, yet amidst the chaos I could still hear the soft sobs of my former fiancé behind me. In the kitchen, I found both of my parents. Their expressions spoke volumes. My mother wore a mix of concern and determination, while my father struggled to contain his anger. It was a familiar scenario, one they had enacted countless times throughout my life. Unfortunately, it was about to reach its conclusion. "Well," my mother began, "that wasn't so terrible, was it?" "Perhaps it depends on one's perspective," I responded calmly. "From my standpoint, it was excruciatingly painful." "Sometimes doing what is right comes with pain," my father growled. "You know that." "Yes," I sighed. "That's precisely what makes this so difficult. Not only was it challenging to have that conversation with Deidre, but it was even more agonizing to be betrayed by those I once trusted. It won't happen again." "Oh, honey, it wasn't like that," my mother interjected. "Of course it was," I interrupted. "I explicitly told you no, yet you proceeded regardless. Disregarding my wishes and my autonomy, you decided to force upon me what you believed to be best. But rest assured, it won't happen again." I had hoped that you both would have learned something from driving Rose and Monica away, but evidently not. You either cannot or will not cease your actions. So, just as with my sisters, this is goodbye. I deeply regret that you won't have any of your children by your side in your old age, but that is the price one pays for bullying and incessant manipulation, I suppose. "Don't you dare threaten us, boy," my father snapped. I retorted, "This is not a threat. I am simply putting an end to this. If it will bring you comfort, I will send a card occasionally. Until then, please refrain from attempting to call or reach out to me, as I will not respond." After that, I turned and exited my parents' home, knowing it would likely be the final time. In the background, I could hear my mother's pleas and sobs being drowned out by my father's curses and shouts. The chaotic intervention had finally come to an end. I wish I could say that things settled down afterward, but that would not be accurate. I cut off all communication with my parents, even changing my phone numbers. Despite my efforts, they continued to try to confront me at my residence or workplace. Moreover, my relationship with Karen suffered as our dates often revolved around discussions about my parents. While it was not the sole reason for our breakup, it certainly played a role. It became evident to both of us that our connection was fading. She lacked the emotional stability to support me through my struggles. Our separation was expected. Subsequently, I decided to start fresh. Although I attempted to transfer to a different location, my company's limited options led me to accept a similar position in another state with a lower salary. Before leaving, I met with Deidre and Brad for lunch to inform them of my departure. While they were not pleased with the news, they were not surprised either. My parents had been causing chaos in our lives. Fortunately, our daughters were able to distance themselves from the situation by blocking specific phone numbers. Brad, on the other hand, faced challenges. During our meeting, he expressed his frustration at being pressured to make difficult choices. I empathized with him, understanding the turmoil he was experiencing. I had not intended to place my son in that situation, but I am uncertain if circumstances would have allowed for any other choice. Eventually, he decided to cut off contact with them. Before my departure, Deidre inquired if I had considered her proposal, to which I confirmed that I had. I then asked if I could visit her whenever I returned to town. She responded with a smile, expressing her hope that I would. I left town without much commotion and began to acclimate to my new environment. Despite financial constraints, I was enjoying my job after a couple of months. I had been on several dates, but none seemed to hold much promise beyond a single night. However, there were two individuals I was seeing again. Celia, an attractive woman I met at work, was a few years older than me but maintained excellent physical fitness due to her passion for yoga. Lori, a charming blonde divorcee in her early 40s, was slightly overweight but possessed captivating blue eyes and a lovely face. As I sat with a glass of wine, contemplating my dating situation, a knock on my apartment door interrupted my thoughts. Upon opening the door, I sensed that things were about to change. "Hello?" she greeted softly. "I was wondering if I could intrude on you for a moment. I am considering renting an apartment in this complex and wanted to speak with some current residents. May I come in?" Although she did not possess striking looks, she managed to make my heart skip a beat. A tall, slender brunette with shoulder-length hair featuring gold-frosted tips, she wore large gold wire-framed glasses that accentuated her eyes. Her eyes reflected a range of emotions, from hope and determination to doubt and fear. "Deidre," I murmured, "what brings you here?" "Well, after my speech about matching actions with words, I felt it would be hypocritical of me not to demonstrate that I still deeply care for you. Besides, you did ask me out before you left. Deidre, I inquired about the possibility of contacting you upon my return to town." "Yes, but you took longer than expected," she replied with a sheepish smile. "Billy," she said, her voice filled with emotion, "I am attempting to strike a balance. On one hand, I want to give you space to start anew, but on the other hand, I need to convey how much I desire the opportunity to demonstrate that we can still have some form of future together. I am aware that I am struggling to maintain this balance, and I may be verging on stalking you, but I felt it was important for you to know. If you are willing, I would also like to start afresh. I understand that our marriage is over, but I believe that there are still lingering feelings between us. I am interested in exploring where we could go if we were to begin dating again. Deidre, moving into my apartment complex." Well, that was a bold move. I would be open to renting here, but I thought it might make you uncomfortable given our proximity. Currently, I am staying at a local motel. I had an interview for a job in this area earlier today. While the position is a step down from my current role, it is stable, and I anticipate regaining my previous level within a year or two. They have offered me the job, but I requested a few days to speak with you first. I lost my say in your decisions when we divorced. In fact, I lost it even before then. Her expression tightened slightly, and she averted her gaze. When she looked back at me, she locked eyes with mine. You are correct, of course, but I am striving to change that. If you do not want me here, I will leave and not trouble you again. Listen, Billy, I am also attempting to start anew. I have made some minor changes to my appearance and am considering a move. Regardless of your decision, I felt the need to break away from the past and begin afresh. I have 3 other interviews scheduled in different cities later this month. While there is a good chance I will secure one of those positions, I truly wish to start anew here, as the 2 men I want in my life are located in this area. I began to formulate a response, but her words caught me off guard. 2? She smiled softly. Well, apart from you, Brad wants to relocate here once he finishes college. I anticipate a call from him within the next week or 2 to ensure you're okay with it. I suppose your parents are still driving him crazy, even while he's away at school and he's seeking a fresh start, she explained. Damn, I muttered, shaking my head. Will they ever learn? I wish I could find a way to make them back off, but they just won't stop. I feel sorry for Brad as well, she said gently. He shouldn't have to endure this either. And as for your parents, Karen still maintains regular contact with them. Good, I chuckled. Maybe they'll adopt her. Deidre laughed, finding the idea amusing. Her laughter caused my heart to skip a beat. It reminded me of happier times, when the anger and pain weren't so overwhelming. Billy, I'm not asking for any guarantees or promises. Well, that's not entirely true. It would be more accurate to say that I don't expect any promises or guarantees. What I'm seeking is an opportunity to start anew. I genuinely want you to be a part of it, even if it's a small part. Well, she said, taking a deep breath. What are your feelings regarding my proposition? I noticed that she inquired about my feelings rather than my thoughts. It was probably wise. My thoughts were scattered and conflicted. I felt both annoyed and flattered that she wanted to be closer to me. In a way, I felt like I was being manipulated into making a decision. But on the other hand, I saw it as a second chance. Initially, I hadn't intended to remove Deidre from my life. It was more of a reaction to the circumstances and the immense pressure I was under at the time. I needed to distance myself completely from her back then, and it escalated into something unyielding. But now, that pressure was gone. I was the one in control. Although there were still lingering feelings of hurt and betrayal, they weren't as overpowering as they had been years ago. I was aware of my lingering love for her, despite the deep damage to my trust. Could it be repaired? Perhaps, but it would require time and would never fully return to its former state. Nevertheless, would it be an improvement or a setback compared to what else I might discover out there? I glanced at Deidre and gestured for her to come inside my apartment. I believe you'll enjoy living in these apartments. The maintenance is efficient and it's relatively peaceful. My decision was straightforward. The only way to determine was to explore both options. I would continue to see other women while also dating Deidre. How long this arrangement would last was uncertain. I anticipate that I will eventually commit exclusively to Deidre. She holds a special place in my heart. She understands me better than any other potential partner, but she also carries the weight of our past marriage, which will always linger. Will I marry again? I am skeptical. The idea of being in a committed relationship with Deidre, Celia, Lori, or someone else appeals to me. However, marriage does not. Having experienced both a failed marriage and engagement, I am hesitant to consider marriage again, but who knows? Hey, listeners! If you enjoyed watching this video and want to stay updated with our latest content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss out on what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video with Queen Cheating Tales.